Okay, so I just wanted to get a look here at this Honda 4-cylinder timing belt situation, and just to get everybody an idea about what we got is we've got this little label here that says up. Okay, so that's up, and then there's a pin on the alignment pin down here. It's pointing at them dots. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this balancer off, and we'll have a look at, there's some more dots there. But one note I want to make here is that when you are doing a time belt, you do have to pull the valve cover off. And whenever I do this, I'll go ahead and pull the plugs because it's much easier to turn over. I pull the plugs, I pull the dipstick out. It's just one bolt. I like to clean up the dipstick, but you have to support the motor, because when you take this motor mount out, it wants to drop down, so we don't like that. And we take all the belts off. The power steering belt, alternator, AC compressor belt comes off. So yeah, so let's go have a look at those down there and pull this harmonic balancer off, take it to the next step. Okay, so here we are on the bottom side, and then before we can remove this cover, we have to take off a couple bolts to get to them. This balancer has to come off, and they normally come off pretty easy. Now, there's a special socket that you can get that helps with that, and I'll show that in a minute. Alright, so that's the situation we got. We just got a couple more bolts to take out and get this crank position sensor harness out of the way, which I'm going to replace the crank position sensor, but I think there's only just a couple of bolts left. I've taken them all out from the top, so let's get that done and have a look. Okay, so here's that special socket I was talking about. This is our mod balancer bolt, and this is that really heavy duty socket. Okay, that's it right there. I think I ordered this thing off of Amazon, but that's the socket. Alright, so this is where we're at on this end of the deal. Now I've got all the bolts out of this cover. I'll take this cover off, and I'm just showing from the side here because it's a little better to video from here. Just want to kind of work it out. It's probably going to hook on all kinds of things before it comes out, so I don't even know what it's up on. Oh, there it goes. Maybe turn a little bit. Doing it with one hand with a camera, that's a tricky job. So anyway, get this little guy out of the way. There we go. Check, check. That's kind of what things look like, and this is what it was hanging on right here. But the next thing I want to show is this wire for the crank position sensor. You just have to get some needle nose pliers and squeeze it from the back. Don't break this off. Don't break the little thing the hole that it goes into off either, because you're going to need this to go back. But this little bolt here is plugging up a hole that aligns one of the balance shafts. Okay, it's got two balance shafts. You take this plug out, it's 12 millimeter. Let me hang on a second, let me get the. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to put something in it. You're supposed to put something in the hole. I don't know if you can see in there very good or not. But there's a balance shaft in there, and you can see that hole is lined up right now. Okay? I'm not going to turn it because I just want it to stay where it's at. If you get something, screwdriver or 1/4-inch drive extension, that's what I got there. And this balance shaft, balance shaft that goes through there won't turn. You know, it'll keep it in sync with the other balance shaft in the front. I think. Wait a minute. No, this only has one balance shaft. Sorry, some of them have two. Anyway, it keeps it in sync because it's 180 degrees out from the counterweights on the crankshaft, and it makes everything run nice and smooth. So from this point here, what we're going to want to do is I'm going to take this bolt loose here, and there's a little spring. There's a spring on the end of this. Sorry, can't see it that well. There's a spring here, and take this bolt out. And the kit comes with a new water pump and a new belt. And this is a This is the balancer belt here, and then the timing belt's right there. Timing belt, see how loose that is? This one's got 100 and almost 12,000 miles on it. But we're gonna get those two replaced, and let me get you to the next step and we'll have a look at things and how they're going here. Alright, so this is one of the balancer shafts here, and what I did is I loosened this 14 millimeter up. Now this thing is really tight. Don't use a cheap banged up boxed in wrench to get this off. You'll have to use a box in because it's too close right here. So use a nice quality tool to take this off. You loosen it up and then you just push it up. Alright, and I pushed it up a little bit and I tightened it with my finger. And then this belt is clear now. Okay, this belt for the balance shaft here, this belt here is clear. Okay, and I got it out of the way. I got a new one, and I took this the pulley off for that there. And what I want to do now is I'm going to replace this crank position sensor here, the crank sensor. I've got a new one, so I'm going to replace that before I do anything else. But the kit comes with the new springs, and these pulleys here comes with new ones. Comes with this new spring here. And I'll take all that stuff off in a minute. And I got mixed up with the balance shaft. I think this balance shaft in the back runs off of the oil pump. I think it does something funny like that. But this one in the front, it has little dots on it. I don't know if anybody can see any of those dots, but there's a dot there. It's supposed to line up the dot there, and then there's a line on the side here that goes forward. So you just line everything up. Don't turn any of it, and you'll be just fine. Now this is an interference engine, so if anything is out of alignment, it will crash the valves. So let me get it to the next step. Alright, so I got the crank position sensor done, and what I did is I got one of the bolts that holds the plastic cover and put it here to hold this, okay? And pushed it down so that this belt has enough slack in it now. If I can move it, I can't. Yeah, it's got enough slack in it now. And so I'll take this belt off, okay? And take this bracket and this spring and all this junk off and get to this water pump here and replace the water pump, and then I'll go back on there. Now this, after I get the belt off, I can remove this bolt and this bolt here, and this whole thing comes off, and I have brand new idlers in the kit. So let's get to the next step. Alright, so I got the pulleys off of there, and now I'm going to remove this mount and get this screw unscrewed. Get this mount out. It's got 314 millimeters in it. Get that guy out of the way, and now I can get to the water pump. There we go. Alright. Now, that water pump, get back a little ways. There we go. Yep, this is a water pump. This is the rear balance shaft, and you see when I move it, you see it moving that little pin up there. You see that? Just don't let the pin fall out. And that's the front balance shaft, and it's got to stay there like that. So we're good. This is a water pump, it don't matter, but I'm about to take all the bolts out of that, put the new one in there, and then we'll put it all back together. Now this is my old pulleys. This is how they stack up like that. And I'll reuse this cover bolt to set the belt when I put it all back together. Alright, so I got the water pump taken off, and this right here is a bolt for the water pump, so just remember that that's got to come out. Don't try to pry it off. All the bolts are the same length except this one, okay? And then I just tighten them up according to how they feel. If you want to get special and try it with a torque wrench, I wouldn't torque them more than maybe 110 inch-pounds. Okay, this is aluminum. It doesn't require that much. It's got a O-ring gasket. Also, when you pull this water pump off, if you do not drain the block, you will get a cascade of water straight through here. So just be prepared for that. If you do get water everywhere, It's gonna have antifreeze in it. You're gonna have to rinse all this off, and I got a little bit on mine. Okay, a little bit came out. It's not that big of a deal. I rinsed it off with fresh water, and then I sprayed alcohol on it and dried it off really nice, because I want everything to be perfect. No antifreeze, no oil, no nothing. Okay, so that's kind of how I did that. I've got all that crank position sensor installed. I think I already talked about that. I've transferred some of the parts that I'm going to reuse, like this this nut and this washer and this bracket, to the new bearing. Okay, these are the new bearings here, and then the small spring goes on this arm here, and the big spring goes on there. And then of course you're going to throw the old ones away. You don't need those no more. This is for this to hold the tension on that, and you don't have to leave a bolt in there. You're going to set the tension on your belt, and then that's it. You tighten this up. You set your tension on your belt and you tighten this up, and you're done. It's not that really hard to do. I'll go over that in a minute. Okay, so when you set this first bearing on there, you'll notice that there's a small pin back here that has to line up. Okay, and things will be kind of spring loaded a little bit, and it's not that hard to get it on, but you will have to mess with it a little bit, see, and it'll have a little tension. But once you set it on there, you'll be able to set it like this, and this is fine. What you're doing is you're just stacking things up for now. Let me get this other one on there, and everybody can have a good look at how things stack up. All right. And this is that arm that clocks right here, that flat side. So let me put my nut on there so it doesn't go bananas on me. Alright, that'll keep things together for now. Alright. Alright, so this other end, you're going to hook that on there. Well, doing it with one hand is a new revelation, man. I tell you what. Doing things with one hand in a video camera is interesting. But anyway, so just going to hook that on there like that. Oh, come on, baby. There we go. Stick this thing on there. It's going to set like this on that flat side. Well, screw that little spring. I'll just put it on with some pliers here in a minute. I'm amazed. Some of this stuff is tricky like a clock sometimes. Alright, so that's how all that lines up, kind of like so. It's not that big of a deal. And of course I put the wrong bolt in there. I just grabbed any old bolt. It's supposed to take this bolt here, that bolt there with the shoulder. So let me fix that. Okay, well, sorry about that. I got the right one on there now, and I went ahead and put this belt on. Now when you put this belt on, you want this side to be the side that you start down here, and before you'll be able to even get enough slack, you have to push down on this inner pulley, on this pulley here, the one that's the tensioner for the timing belt. You reach around the top and you push down like this, down, okay, stretch this spring out, and right here you'll see that I have this bolt in it, and it's all the way down as far as it'll go, and I've tightened this bolt up and tightened this nut up a little bit, okay, and so this is the position that I want it to be in, and then I start my belt here and I work my way around and push it on. And you see how where it's just got a little bit of looseness there. You see that? And so when I take this loose, it's going to tighten up a little bit, and that will be the tension. And it really, I mean, you don't even need a bolt to be in there. This is just a service thing for when you're installing it to help you put it on. So, alright, so the tension of this spring has now pulled the tension and set the tension on the belt, okay? you can loosen this nut up a little bit so that it turns. But you see, when it went up, it set the tension on the belt, so it's fine, no problem. So now that's done, and let me get it to the next step. Okay, so just hang on. Okay, so this is kind of hard to show, but I'll give it my best shot. When I installed this balancer shaft pulley with these two balance shafts on here, what I did is I had this pulley off like this, and of course I pushed this one up all the way. Now this nut is loose enough for me to just shove that up, okay? So that'll give me the most space for that belt. But I had this off. I can't do it with one hand. But anyway, I had this pulley off like this with the belt started and with the belt out here on the edge. I had it all the way like halfway on this this pulley here. Had it halfway on and had it on this one, and I pushed down, like had it floating, and pushed it down into position. Now you'll be surprised how easy it is to turn these balance shafts. They're pretty easy, but they won't turn when they're, of course they won't turn with the belt on them, but I'm just saying this one won't turn where it's at. It's got the alignment pin in there still, okay? That one's fine. If this one turns, well, you just need to put it back to where it's pointing that way, okay? If it gets misaligned, you'll have a vibration in your engine and it'll be just a little off. It's not a deal breaker. Some people hot rod these things and they take those balance shafts out, so in that case there, it just shakes more. But so what you want to do after this is you're going to want to loosen that up and let the tension come back, because this spring right here sets the tension for that belt, and all it needs to do is just come down. That's it. Easy enough. Okay, so here's some information from the book. I just want to make sure I got everybody in line with what's going on here. Installing the timing belt, line up the crankshaft, line up the other pulley. Installing the timing belt, they want you to do it in a sequence. 1, drive pulley A. 2, you want to wrap the pulley. Of course, I talked about it backwards, but I guess when you really think about it, that's the actual way that I did it, but I didn't say it that way, so there you are. And then loosen and retighten the adjusting nut to tension the timing belt. Clean any oil off, talks about seals, whatever. And then it says temporarily install the crankshaft pulley and bolt. Rotate the crankshaft pulley 5 or 6 turns counterclockwise to seat the timing belt on the pulleys. And then to adjust the belt tension, you loosen the adjusting nut 2/3 or 1 turn. Rotate the crankshaft counterclockwise 3 teeth on the camshaft pulley, and then tighten the adjusting nut to 33 foot-pounds. And then it says turn the crankshaft pulley so its TDC mark lines up with the pointer, and check the camshaft pulley marks. Okay, if they're off, you'll have to figure it out. You'll have to take this back apart and fix it. Okay, you'll have to remove it and repeat the steps again. So there you are. That's how it works. That's some information there that everybody wants. See, and there's the balancer. There's the deal about the balancer bolt. And then the shaft has a little teardrop looking mark for lining up that shaft. I'll always go by that, but they show it in a different place in here. And then and when you install the crankshaft pulley, it says here you want to tighten it up to 181 foot-pounds. And then of course it gives all the tension, all the torque specs. The dipstick torque spec bolts is 8.7 foot-pounds. The cover torque specs are all 8.7. So, and this is for all the motor mount bolts there. So you can just pause the video if you want to look at that. Let's see, and then it continues to go on with some other information. So that's kind of a quick blow-by-blow on how the book goes over some of this stuff. It shows a special tool to remove that there's a special tool here. Let's see. Yeah, it does give a J number. Yeah. So if you want to mess with that, you can. I've got a funny looking socket that looks like that I got off of eBay or Amazon or something long ago. So anyway, that's kind of some of the information about all that. I'm not going to go over all this stuff here. This stuff is pretty cut and dried and simple, but I am going to just give you a glance and show it to you. So that's it. I'm not going to go over the rest of it because I'm not able to show a live belt adjustment on there, but that's the idea about how to do it. So I hope this helps somebody and you got some torque specs at it and you got the idea about what it looks like and how it's put together and how the book shows it. So y'all have a good day. Take it easy.